Tennessee football has the large task in trying to replace a Biletnikoff Award winner, a 1,000-yard receiver from 2 years ago, and an All-American who will likely be a first-round draft pick. That's Cedric Tillman, Jalin Hyatt, and Darnell Wright. How the Vols are going to be just fine offensively. That and more coming up here on your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and I'm your host, Eric Cain. So glad that you guys elected to hang out with me here today on Locked On Vols. You can always find me on Twitter at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. Please subscribe to this channel where you can answer the question of the day. That question of the day is, who will be Tennessee's starting right tackle this season? Who's it going to be? Darnell Wright leaves. Who's it going to be? A couple different options. We'll get into that in segment number 2 when we kind of talk about the offensive line heading into spring practice. Segment 1 here, we're going to talk about the wide receiver position heading into spring practice, and then we'll catch up with Josh Ward for a little Ward Wednesday action in segment number 3. So we have spring practice that begins the week after next, and we're going to start kind of going back in and looking at each individual position group for the Tennessee football team heading into spring practice. The losses, the additions, the guys who were signed, all that and more. We did this at the end of last football season, but some things have changed. So we're going to kind of have to reset and get you guys back thinking in the football mind of things because spring practice does happen the week after next. And we're going to start with wide receiver here in segment number 1. Tennessee loses Jalin Hyatt, the Biletnikoff Award winner, consensus All-American, maybe a first-round draft pick, a speed demon. I don't think he hurt himself. In fact, by next-gen stats, Jalin Hyatt actually had the best overall combine grade of any wide receiver. So that's saying something. I know that he dropped a long pass from Will Levis with no defense, no rush or anything. Will Levis threw just a beautiful ball. Can you believe that? And he dropped that ball. I know that. But and I know he didn't run as fast as he wanted to. But I'm to the point where I'm kind of convinced those clocks were off. Those clocks were not as quick as they were on Thursday. Credit Byron Young. Good for him, man. But no receivers ran fast. No receivers ran fast on Friday or on Saturday, I mean. I don't know. It just looked a little bit different. Maybe I'm living in conspiracy land here, but I think it looked a little bit different. But anyway, Tennessee's having to replace Jalin Hyatt. Tennessee's having to replace Cedric Tillman, who was banged up in 2022, but was a 1,000-yard wide receiver and the breakout candidate for Josh Heupel in 2021. That's 2 big-time weapons at wide receiver. All right, Tennessee is having to lose Darnell Wright. Again, getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about that here in the next segment. But this is why Tennessee's going to be just A-okay. Tennessee lost Velus Jones, who had about 900 receiving yards out of the slot, and I think about 7 touchdowns. Tennessee lost Javonte Payton, who had only 18 receptions on the season, but he had 6 touchdowns. Tennessee lost all that production, and then were able to do more the next year. You did keep Cedric Tillman, which was huge, but again, somebody else stepped up. And I'm not trying to make the case that it's just system, because I don't believe that's always the case. I think Josh Heupel and his coaches are good developers at the position. I do. I really, really do. I mean, Cody Burns was one. Kelsey Pope is there now. You have Alex Golesh, who's been there the last couple of years, and Joey Halsey's been there every step of the way, and he's stepping up to be the offensive coordinator. But I truly believe Tennessee develops really well on the offensive side of the football. I mean, stats don't lie here in 2 seasons, and you've had guys who are broken out and everything, and you lost so much production, and then you seem to not only not lose a step, but maybe gain a step in the process. Now, I don't think Tennessee will gain a step. I mean, it's hard to be the number 1 offense in scoring and total offense in the country 2 years in a row. It's difficult. Plus, you're losing your quarterback, and that's a key variable in this. Hendon Hooker's no longer here. You do have Joe Milton. But I'm going to put my faith and my stock in Josh Heupel and those coaches on the offense side of the football that they're going to be A-okay, right? I mean, I've seen it 2 years now, and I've seen it year after year after losing a ton of production. So when you look at that wide receiver position, if you're going to be A-okay, then what are you bringing back? Well, let's start on one side. It's Bru McCoy. Bru McCoy was second on the team and 52 receptions, 667 receiving yards. He was steady Eddie out there on the outside. I think his role will continue to grow. Look on the other side. That's where the big kind of battle is, in my opinion. You got let me start that over. You got Ramel Keaton, who stepped up and was so solid. You can't say enough good things about Ramel Keaton, what he did for Tennessee last year. 31 receptions, 562 yards, receiving 5 touchdowns. He was phenomenal, right? He stepped up so big for Tennessee when Cedric Tillman was out. Excuse me. But you have that, but also you brought in Dante Thornton. You brought in Dante Thornton from Oregon, who hasn't done an awful lot so far in college, but he's played, he's experienced, he is tall, he is lengthy, he is explosive. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Javonte Payton, but I think he's even more explosive than him and versatile, because Dante Thornton of Oregon, who came via the transfer portal, he can slide in and play the slot as well, and that'll come in handy here in just one moment in my conversation. So those are the outside guys who I think are going to get the big-time playing time. And remember, Tennessee plays 3 receivers. Tennessee does not rotate at the receiver position, so you can say all you want in fall camp and in spring practice and in media availabilities and all that, but when it comes down to it, Tennessee plays 3 wide receivers. That's just what they've always done. Maybe a 4th, maybe. But I think it's going to be a heck of a battle with Dante Thornton and Ramel Keaton, and it's hard not to think that Dante Thornton will win that battle if healthy, because he's bigger, he's faster, he's more explosive. I mean, it is what it is. And that's no disrespect to Ramel Keaton, because he's done a hell of a job. Move inside to the slot position where Tennessee has found so much success with Josh Heupel. Velus Jones one year, Jalin Hyatt last year. Now it's going to be Squirrel White. Squirrel White's already got that connection with Joe Milton, had a touchdown in the Orange Bowl, had a couple of touchdowns with Milton late in blowout wins for Tennessee in 2022. He's slow in stature, but boy, he can run by anybody on the football field. He runs good routes. He's tough. I think Tennessee is going to explode in the slot with Squirrel White next football season. But who's the slot receiver behind him? You lost Walker Merrill to Wake Forest in the portal. You lost Jimmy Callaway to Louisville in the portal. Jalin Hyatt's gone. I mean, who's going to play the slot? That's why I think Dante Thornton comes in. If something were to happen to Squirrel White, I think Dante Thornton would slide in a game setting, play the slot position, and then Ramel Keaton can go up on the outside. That's where that versatility comes into play there. But who else? Who else is kind of eyeing and jockeying for some playing time? Well, I think it's going to be a big-time spring for a pair of second-year receivers, Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb. Where are they in the pecking order? How far away are they to contributing? Will Tennessee have to rely on the transfer portal again in the offseason, or will these guys be able to step up and be those replacements now, 3 years in the system? I don't think these two guys are going to start. They might make headways. If somebody gets hurt, maybe they step up and play well. But if all is healthy, I don't think these two will start. But they need to figure out kind of what their roles is, and we need to see how far they develop. Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb, 2 receivers from the class of 2022, both of which the coaches really liked Chaz Nimrod a lot last year, but he was banged up a little bit during camp. Freshman incoming 2023 class signee Nathan Laycock. How much noise can he make in spring practice? Probably the best eval of all evals for the Tennessee coaching staff was unranked, and then he was bolted up into a top 100 ranking by the end of the year. Nathan Laycock, really, really good player from the state of North Carolina. I'm intrigued to see how much noise he can make. So those are, and then you have Cam Selton, who I think is going to start more running back this spring practice because the running back room is going to be limited. And then you have Nate Spillman from Lipscomb Academy, who signed a part of this class as well. And, of course, Tennessee's trying to get his brother, Edwin Spillman, a linebacker, #1 player in the state for Tennessee in the class of 2024. So it's going to be a big spring. See how these scholarship guys look. How do they do? How do they perform? Who steps up? Brew McCoy's going to be very banged up and very limited in spring practice. So what an opportunity there for Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb. Seriously, I was just talking about it. What an opportunity. What a chance for Ramel Keaton to continue his good play and to continue to prove like, hey, I'm still here and I only did this, this, and this, and this, and this for you last year. Don't forget about me, right? And then Nathan Laycock as well. He's a big body guy. I think that's what Tennessee really likes about him. What an opportunity in spring practice for him to showcase those abilities. But Jalin Hyatt is gone. Cedric Tillman is gone. Walker Merrill transferred. Jimmy Callaway transferred. Jimmy Holiday transferred. It's a new era for Tennessee wide receivers, but because of what Josh Heupel and Cody Burns / Kelsey Pope / Alex Golish have done in 2 years here at Tennessee, I would put money that there would be another 1,000-yard receiver for Tennessee in 2023, and I think Tennessee will be just fine at the wide receiver position. What about it? What about the offensive line position? We're going to take a look at the offensive line here in segment number 2 and how big of a loss it is for Tennessee without the All-American and the probable, I'm going to go and say that. I'll say it right now, the probable first-round pick in Darnell Wright. How does Tennessee overcome all that? That is what we have to look forward to when we come back right here in segment number 2 of a Wednesday show. But guys, I want to remind you about our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. It's tournament time coming up. You got the SEC tournament, you got conference tournaments all around the country, you got the NCAA tournament that is coming up the following weekend. Selection Sunday is going to be this Sunday. Boy, it's going to be a fun next couple of days. And they got it all at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. They got a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you need to do to get in on all that action is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, and it is super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything, from the NBA games to the college games, to the money lines to the spreads to three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payouts with same-game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. That is when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, guys, welcome back into it. It is a Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Cain. The cue of the day, and we're going to get into it right here. Who will be Tennessee's starting right tackle this season? Big-time question because big shoes to fill there with Darnell Wright heading on to the NFL. You got a couple options. We'll go over them here, but who will be Tennessee's starting right tackle for the 2023 season? So we talked about wide receivers in segment number 1 and how I think Tennessee will be just fine in that regard because you've generated back-to-back 1,000-yard receivers. I have more questions about the offensive line. Do I think Tennessee will be okay? I do because why? Well, it is a unique offense that runs in tempo, and you are more conditioned than the other teams, and you are getting them grasping for air, if you will, and it takes them about a quarter to get it figured out, right? So you already have that advantage for you. Just the pace of play and the fast tempo and the terminology and all that's another advantage. But also, you do still bring back 3 starters on the offensive line that have been there, done that. But I do have more pause in this because everything Darnell Wright was the past 2 years. Remember, he started over 40 games in the SEC. He did not allow a sack in his last 19 games playing for the University of Tennessee. He completely shut down B.J. Ojulari against LSU and Will Anderson Jr. against Alabama in back-to-back games, the 2 best guys he went up and played against the entire season, and shut them down. Darnell Wright is a good player. Darnell Wright is going to be a first-rounder, and that's going to be some big shoes to fill. So I have questions there, but also Jerome Carvin. Jerome Carvin was here for 5 years or 4 years. I always get confused about Jerome Carvin. I think he was here for 4 years. Maybe 5 years. I don't know. He was here for a long time, and he played guard, played center, played both guard spots. You thought he was going to be redshirted back in 2019, but Tennessee could not afford to redshirt him. Okay, that's it right there. He was here in 2018, 2019, 2021, 20. He was here 5 years. Okay, glad we got that settled. And then I'll go back and look after the show. No, I'm wrong. Anyway, he was here for a long time. He played a ton of football, played a couple of different positions, and he was kind of the unsung hero, I think, when everybody thought of Cade Mays. Everybody thought of Trey Smith. Everybody thought of Darnell Wright. Jerome Carvin was just there plugging along the entire time, just going about his business and doing what he does. I'm pretty sure he did not allow a sack in his last 10-plus games either. He was a really, really good player. So 2 big-time losses for Tennessee, but they do bring back Cooper Mays at center, Javonte Spraggins at right guard, and 2 guys who split the left tackle position. Tennessee led the nation in total offense, led the nation in scoring offense. The only team in the nation to average over 300 yards passing and 200 yards rushing, and also led the nation with 39 rushing touchdowns. Did all of that running and playing behind an offensive line that had a 50-50 timeshare at left tackle last year. Yes, it was Gerald Mincey, and then it was J.J. Crawford. I wrote about it earlier in the offseason, and I'm kicking myself that I don't have it right in front of me now. Remind me, I'll say it to you on the show tomorrow. But if you look at the, we're gonna do it on the fly right now. Okay, this is how we say that Eric Cain is not prepared, because we are literally doing this on the fly. Okay. So offense, if you go here and you find, let's do a little, there's Gerald Mincey. Gerald Mincey had, and again, I had this note in an article I wrote a long time ago, Gerald Mincey played a total of 457 snaps in 2022. Okay, J.J. Crawford played a total of 424 snaps in 2022. So it was literally almost the exact same amount of snaps at the left tackle position, and Tennessee was still able to go on and do everything that it did. That's impressive, right? J.J. Crawford has shown the ability that he can play on the right side. He started the Music City Bowl at right tackle. He played a lot of right tackle in 2021 when Darnell Wright was playing left tackle. Did I say Gerald Mincey? J.J. Crawford. If I said Gerald Mincey, I'm sorry. J.J. Crawford's the one that can play on the right side. Gerald Mincey, I don't believe can. I think he's a left side all the way type guy. So would it behoove Tennessee more to have Gerald Mincey at left tackle and John Campbell at right tackle, or J.J. Crawford at right tackle? Maybe John Campbell can beat out John Mincey. I don't know. Or Gerald Mincey. I don't know. We'll have to see. That's what spring practice is for. But big-time question at left tackle on who's it going to be. Will one of them move? And where does John Campbell, addition from the transfer portal, kind of mix into this? John Campbell, offensive tackle from Miami, came in via the transfer portal. This will be like his 6th year in college. He's played a ton. He's played every single position on the offensive line except center. He started every game for Miami last year at the left tackle position. I think he can be the answer to the right tackle problem for Tennessee. He will not be Darnell Wright, but he can be a guy that can step in, been there, done that. But just like Gerald Mincey last year and last spring at this time, he's got to come in, he's got to know the system, he's got to rep, he's got to get his butt in shape. This is a unique offense to jump into, so the spring is very critical for him. I think John Campbell is the answer for Tennessee at right tackle. Also coming in via the transfer portal, Andre Carrick from Texas. Spent his 2-year career at Texas as a backup offensive lineman, more so a backup tackle. Can Tennessee put him at guard? Can he be the replacement for Jerome Carvin at guard? I think that's some of the chatter here early on. We will find out here in spring exactly where he's practicing and what he looks like. But those are the 2 offensive linemen coming in via the transfer portal. And I think John Campbell can be the key to unlocking that right tackle position. And I think Andre Carrick, if he comes in as well, does the same things. I think he has a lot to offer as a guard in this offense. But if it's not, could it be a veteran? Ollie Lane or Jackson Lampley. They've been here. They've done that. They've played. They've stepped up. But are either one of those guys ready to be a starting guard in this offense? Well, I think a lot of that has to do with Andre Carrick this year, this spring, how he adapts and coming from over from Texas. Tennessee also lost William Parker and R.J. Perry to the transfer portal, but those guys are not going to factor into playing time. Wanted to go off and see some better opportunities. They signed offensive tackle Sham Umarov, junior college offensive tackle Larry Johnson, offensive guard Vyson Lang, and offensive guard Aiden Bussell. Now, will any of those guys be in a position to contribute this year? I don't think so. Would you like the junior college Larry Johnson to be able to fight for some reps and fight for some playing time? You would. But as I pointed out when Tennessee signed him, he is 6'7", 365 pounds. He has got to lose some weight. He's got to. He's 100% got to lose some weight. I don't know where he is right now. Maybe he has. I'm intrigued to see what he looks like. Saw him a little bit during bowl practice, but I'm intrigued to see how he moves around with that weight and what he looks like in this offense. Those are the guys who Tennessee signed on the offensive line here in the class of 2024. And then just 2 more questions, and one kind of overlaps with the other. One big question outside of the right tackle position, outside of the left guard position is, who's the backup center? Tennessee has not had a center of the future, if you will, since Josh Heupel's been here. Jerome Carvin has been the emergency center. He's come over and snapped if a helmet popped off or Cooper Mays had to miss some time. And in 2021, Jerome Carvin actually started some games at center for an injured Cooper Mays. Who is the backup center? Could it be Addison Nichols? Big spring upcoming for Addison Nichols. Could it be Vyson Lang, who Tennessee just signed? Could it be a Javonte Spraggins in an emergency situation like Jerome Carvin? Slide down from that guard position. You know, he played center in high school as well. Could it be one of these other guys? We will have to see. It's going to be a major, major spring in terms of answering that question, as well as what Addison Nichols is, and some of these other second-year offensive linemen. Just like we looked at the wide receivers, like big spring to figure out who Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod are. I want to know who Brian Grant is right now a year into the system. I want to know who Mo Clipper is and who Messiah Reddick is. Messiah Reddick was getting some big-time praise from Alex Golesh when he was still here, saying that he was still ways away and still trying to develop his body, but saying Messiah Reddick has got it, right? He's going to be a player in this offense, on this offensive line. Is that pushing for playing time right now, or is that still a year or two down the line? We'll see. And then Brian Grant. the guy that Tennessee signed that had only played football for like a year or two prior, 6'7", 250 pounds, but looked as skinny as a rail. He was a basketball player, had a basketball body. He's got the frame. He's already put on a ton of weight since being here at Tennessee, but where is he in terms of his development, his footwork, and playing that tackle position? He's everything you want in an offensive tackle, but it was a project-type signing back in the class of 2022. Where's Brian Grant at now? I'll be intrigued to find out. So I think Tennessee will be fine on the offensive line, but I do have more questions and I guess more reservations about this than I do the wide receiver group that we talked about in segment number 1. We'll get a chance to see where Tennessee's at and how much progress has been made when spring practice starts right here on Rocky Top on March the 20th. All right, when we come back, Josh Ward is going to join the show for a little Ward Wednesday action right here on Locked On Vols. We got a final segment left here of this Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. You know what that means. It is Ward Wednesday. We welcome on to the show good pal, co-host of Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal. That is Josh Ward. Josh, what's up, dude?
A lot happening. March is here. Exciting time. So, yeah, good things, I think, for Tennessee fans to follow with all the different sports.
Hey, from the top, though, tell us about the new newsletter. We mentioned a little bit last week. What do we have to look forward to on the newsletter for you and Swain this week? And for everybody watching and listening, the link is in both the audio description and the YouTube page if you want to check out and subscribe to that newsletter for Josh and Swain.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. And we just started it up a couple of weeks ago. It's kind of a compact roundup on what we've been talking about, Tennessee related, with a little bit of outside Tennessee perspective in the sports world. But it's every Friday. It's not going to fill up your inbox. It's every Friday. Goes into your email inbox, takes a few minutes to read. So joshandswain.com, you can go there or check out the link in the description. And we would appreciate you signing up. Appreciate all the positive feedback and any kind of feedback. We'll take it as we're just getting started here.
All right, Tennessee basketball, its first full game without Zakai Zeigler. It wasn't a horrible showing, just kind of defensive lapses there towards the end. Let Auburn come back and take the lead. And, of course, you can't go a 6-minute and 45-second scoring drought or whatever it was to end the game. Tennessee had it. Tennessee shot well. Looked like Tennessee was playing some decent basketball, but Auburn comes away with it. And because of that loss on the Plains, Tennessee is the 5th seed in the SEC. Hard to believe you were ranked number 2 about a month ago, and now you're the 5th seed in a down conference.
Yeah, and coming out of the Auburn game, Eric, I think we're still talking about the same things that Tennessee needs to do to win and the same issues that Tennessee needs to clean up. The problem is we're talking about needing to do some things and needing to fix some things without Zakai, and he would be an answer for some of the topics on both sides heading into postseason play. And everybody knows, I think, if you followed college basketball, that this time of year guard play becomes even more important. So now Tennessee is trying to figure things out without Zakai. That would be a reason given for, playing on Thursday is not so bad. I don't know that it makes a big difference, but if you are trying to figure some things out communication-wise on defense and trying to figure out lineup rotation, you have a better chance to do that and win the game against your Thursday opponent as opposed to trying to do that for the first time or second time, I guess they played Auburn, but on Friday against Missouri, which is a much better team than either team Tennessee will play on Thursday. I also looked at the Auburn game and said, you know what? Santiago Vescovi needed to step up and did in a lot of ways, scoring more than 20 points. And the way Tennessee was able to fight back in the second half before finally not winning in the end was also a good sign. With Zakai Zeigler, that was going to be a tough game to win on the road against a desperate team trying to get into the NCAA tournament. So if Tennessee can have players who need to step up, they can win some games this week, and they can still win some games in the NCAA tournament.
3 Vols named to the All-SEC team per the coaches, and Zakai went double dip. He was named to the All-Defensive team, second team All-Conference. Santiago Vescovi back-to-back years on the first team, and Julian Phillips named to the All-Freshman team. That all seems just about right. I mean, there's nobody – like last year, you could have made a strong case that Josiah was left off one of those teams. This year, I think that was about right.
Yeah, I think so. I thought Zakai was deserving of being SEC Defensive Player of the Year because he was such an important part defending on the perimeter for the best defense in the country. But in terms of the all-SEC teams, yeah, I think it's right. Julian Phillips being all-freshman, I think is pretty obvious with what he did. Vescovi, it's a reminder of how good he is and what he's capable of doing, being a first-team all-SEC guy in back-to-back years. Assuming Josiah Jordan-James moves on and does not return for a fifth season of eligibility. Him leaving Tennessee not being all defense doesn't sound right. But in terms of this team and what it was, I think the awards, the recognition was deserving. And it is a reminder of what Tennessee has to replace in Zakai. He is a two-way player in terms of his impact on offense and the way he helped lead Tennessee's defense. And Wendell Green had a big game for Auburn. Does he have that big of a game with Zakai on the floor? Probably not. Zakai's a Rick Barnes point guard too. You know that, Eric, because at the start of the second half, the first thing Zakai was asked when he was on the TV broadcast doing his interview, when he was asked, what does Tennessee need to do better here in the second half? He said, step it up on defense. And then Tennessee did not do that. So it's a reminder of what Tennessee has to replace when you look at the all-SEC teams with Zakai being off the floor.
Kind of on that note, looking ahead, and I understand the SEC tournaments this week. You have the NCAA tournament coming up the next couple of weekends. So in no shape or form am I closing the door on the season. But kind of on that note, man, you lose a ton from this team. I mean, a ton. And we'll see what Josiah wants to do and some of these other seniors. They have the option to come back. Everybody but Tyreek Key. But, I mean, I'd be surprised, to be frank, if any of those guys decided to come back and exercise that. You lose a lot. You got some exciting young players that are coming into the program or who are here right now, but redshirting. Kind of what's your outlook in terms of trying to replace those guys for next season?
Yeah, and by the way, in college basketball, making assumptions on what rosters will be is very difficult because of the ability to go pro if you have those kinds of players or players that can enter the transfer portal. Let's assume that the seniors are moving on, that they're not exercising that extra year of eligibility. Well, Jemai Mashak is a player that has to step up. Jonas Adu takes on a bigger role next year. Zakai's injury, I think, adds to the need to go find a point guard in the transfer portal. I think that need could already be there. BJ Edwards' future is a question based on how little he's been used, even since Zakai went down. What's Julian Phillips' future? I don't know what the roster looks like. Now, they've recruited well. It's a well-thought-of class, and having Freddie DeLeon on campus has to help him be able to make a big impact right away because that will be part of the expectation. My guess is that Tennessee will have a good roster, one of the best rosters in the SEC next season. It's just difficult to say exactly what the personnel will look like for that to be the case. But I think Tennessee is an attractive place in the transfer portal. They have a good class coming in. They will get Zakai back at some point next season. And when that happens, he will make a big impact. I think he comes back strong next season. It's just a matter of when. Either way, like I said, they needed to go find point guard help. I would say that is emphasized. A point guard or a combo guard that you truly trust to help run the point.
And then finally, Josh, NFL Combine is now in the rearview mirror. 7 Tennessee Vols participated. Well, I mean, Hendon Hooker was there and he did what he could, but 6 Vols went through drills and did a bunch of stuff. Is Tennessee going to have a first-round draft selection?
I think so. And by the way, one quick addition. I've already forgotten if I even said his name, but if I didn't, I'm very high on what Jemai Mashak can be next season. I think he has a chance to be a really good player if he continues to develop his offensive game because he's already a potential all-SEC defensive player if he's in a full-time starting role. So I want to make sure I add that in and talk about
to show how much you like Jemai Mashak, you actually let off with him and then circled back around to him. So yeah, big fan.
Okay, and it also tells you where my mind is. I have 3 small children, so that's my explanation. But yeah, I have a lot of Jemai Mashak stock, so now I'm just trying to pitch it to everybody else. So I want to make sure I got that out there. Yes, Darnell Wright's going to be a first-round pick. I don't know about Jalin Hyatt. I think he has a chance to be that. Part of that is when does the first receiver come off the board, and then how quickly do teams start making that move? But I think Jalin has a really good chance. I'd say in the top 40 picks, I'd be really surprised if he does not come off the board. But I thought going into the Combine, Darnell Wright, he was a projected first-rounder pretty solidly. Now that he's run the way that he has, and it's not that offensive linemen are running around all over the place, I think it emphasized his athleticism and at his size and the way that he performed this past season in the SEC. Darnell has, he has all those boxes checked. He has the physical makeup. He has the tape with what he did in SEC play against top pass rushers, including the top pass rusher in this draft in Will Anderson. And he has the references with all the other people, whether it's somebody like Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, or respected analysts like Louis Riddick, and then Joe Thomas, who's a Hall of Fame offensive tackle, saying, I was really impressed by Darnell Wright. I would be stunned if Darnell's not a first-rounder.
Josh, what's coming up the rest of the week on the show? Josh and Swain, noon to 3 on 99.1 The Sports Animal.
Yeah, it's a mix of everything from the draft. There's excitement for Tennessee fans to pay attention to with Hendon Hooker's stock rising as a quarterback. Looks like maybe solidified as QB5 right now. And you can debate, should he be even higher? But I think he's in a pretty good position and could land in a good spot in the NFL. Darnell, that we just talked about. And then Tennessee basketball, what are they going to do with this SEC tournament? And does it give us an idea of what they can do in the NCAA tournament? Plus, Tennessee baseball fans are getting fired up there and should be. So there's a lot going on for Tennessee fans, and we're covering it on Josh and Swain.
And don't forget to subscribe to the Josh and Swain newsletter. That subscription link is in the show notes here on YouTube and Apple and wherever you're listening. You can subscribe there every single Friday. About 8:30, I got mine last week, and it was a good read to kind of start my day. Josh, appreciate it, man. Don't
be surprised if there's a Jemai Meshack note in the newsletter this upcoming week. I'm high on that guy, if you missed it.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Thank you, Eric.
See you, Josh. All right, that'll do it. Ward Wednesday, former Locked On Vols host, current Josh and Swain host over at 99.1 The Sports Animal. That is Josh Ward, joins us every single Wednesday, so appreciate his time and always appreciate your time every single day here on Locked On Vols. Had a good football conversation on kind of what Tennessee has in the offensive line and at the receiver position as we enter spring practice. It's going to be here before you know it, and we're going to start kind of looking at each individual position leading up to that March the 20th start date. So it'll be here the week after next and start kind of not reinventing the position, but kind of remembering who's there, who left, who came in via the transfer portal, who were those projections, all that and more here leading up to spring practice. So we did a little of that, talked to Josh Ward, talked some hoops, and we'll do it all again tomorrow right here on Locked On Vols. Check out Locked On SEC and Locked On College Basketball. Make that your second and third listen. We're right behind Locked On Vols each and every day. Guys, appreciate it. Thanks so much. Same time, same place tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.